The new resident. Jonathan Miller was a simple man, living with his wife, Laura, and their two children, Emily and Daniel, in a small town in rural Ohio. It was the 90s. He owned a small hardware store that had been passed down from generation to generation in his family. Despite his peaceful life, Jonathan always felt like something was missing, a sense of greater purpose. Jonathan had been raised in a Christian home, but the daily routine and worries of everyday life had taken away from his religious practice. Prayers and church visits became sporadic, and he rarely thought about his faith. Jonathan's peaceful life was shaken when a large chain of hardware stores opened a branch in the city. With lower prices and a wider variety of products, the new store quickly attracted Jonathan's customers, leaving his small store on the brink of bankruptcy in just 8 months. Jonathan tried everything to save his business: promotions, community events, even a bank loan. However, nothing seemed to work. The financial pressure began to affect not only the store, but also family life. Laura did her best to support her husband, while Emily and Daniel, still very young, felt the tension in the air. Desperately, Jonathan remembered the times when prayer was a regular part of his life, and that whenever he felt lost, he turned to his prayers. One morning, there behind the counter, he decided to pray. He asked for strength, clarity, and a solution to his situation, as he needed to maintain his family and honor the business that had so much sentimental value. In prayer, Jonathan states that he needed a great miracle, and if it were contemplated, he would testify about grace reached everywhere. Constant attendance at church and support from the community rekindled Jonathan's faith. He began to realize that, despite the difficulties, there was something bigger at stake. His renewed faith brought a new perspective to his life and his business. One day, while organizing the store, an unknown man came in and started talking to Jonathan. The man introduced himself as Thomas. According to him, he had recently arrived in the city and was passing by some businesses to meet and introduce himself to the old residents, as a sign of respect and politeness. Jonathan, who was already a little sad, decided to vent to the visitor and briefly told him his story and the reason for his current anguish. Thomas felt sorry for the story and proposed a partnership without any interest in profits, just as a way to help. And then, Jonathan, without having many options, decided to accept. Thomas then suggests modernizing the hardware store, introducing new products and services that the large competitor chain did not offer. Jonathan, although skeptical at first, saw the proposal as an opportunity to save his business and accepted the new neighbor's advice. With Thomas's help, the store underwent a transformation. They introduced a specialized tools section for local artisans, organized workshops, and established an online presence to reach more customers, something that Thomas himself managed at the beginning. Despite the improvements, finances were still tight. Jonathan and Thomas worked tirelessly to keep the business running. Jonathan was grateful for his new friend's help, but he knew that if those strategies didn't work, everything would be lost. Thomas, seeing Jonathan sad and regretting the situation, just says, "You already work a lot, now you just need faith. Let's extend this room to the back, because your store needs to be bigger. Trust me, you will need more space." As Jonathan didn't know what to do, he had no choice but to try everything to save his business and accept to follow Thomas's advice. About 3 weeks in, when nothing new seemed to happen, a major construction project was announced in town, and the company responsible had a great man at its head and decided to purchase all of its building materials and tools from Jonathan's store. Even though he knew his small store would be able to handle the large orders, the order was huge, something Jonathan had never experienced before. Jonathan saw this as a miracle, a sign that his faith and perseverance had been rewarded. Even losing days of sleep to find enough suppliers and materials to serve your newest client. With difficulty, Jonathan had done a good job, meeting deadlines and contracts, making your company get back on its feet again. Everything seemed to be heading towards prosperity and stability, except for one very strange reason. Once Jonathan's business began to recover, Thomas no longer appeared at the store. He wasn't even found on the street, nor did anyone know anything about him. The disappearance of the new resident of the region worried Jonathan and even made him call the authorities. It was later found that there were no disappearances in the city involving someone with Thomas's characteristics, which made everything even stranger. Jonathan said he was very upset by the disappearance of the friend who had advised him and helped him so much to get his life back on track. Until one late afternoon, talking to a resident near his store, Jonathan hears what seems to be the scariest and most incredible thing in his life. The resident says he is embarrassed for having hidden something from Jonathan, and then explains it by saying that he also didn't understand what was happening. "Whenever I passed by your store," the man said to Jonathan, "I saw him talking and laughing to someone, which was very strange, because the only person in the store was you." Jonathan is amazed and realizes that perhaps he had not met any man, but that something supernatural had happened. After all, he was fine despite all the stress, and had never had any hallucinations or psychological problems. Then, reflecting on it, he remembers the prayer he had said asking for a miracle and realizes that Thomas, perhaps, had been an angel sent by God as an answer to his prayer. Jonathan, due to so much evidence, just accepts and starts to honor his promise to spread his testimony, impressing people and filling them with faith. The certainty that Thomas had been a sign from God is that he appeared suddenly, and his only purpose was to help Jonathan. Thomas was never seen again, not by police authorities, not by neighbors, not by anyone. God honors true causes and helps those who trust in him.